and it's my honor to introduce a man that does not need introduction, the governor of the great state of Idaho, C.O. Butch Otter.
Hey,
Governor, welcome to Idaho Public Television.
Thank you. Peter, good to be here.
So this is your opportunity.
Am I supposed to introduce Bruce?
Oh, yeah, Bruce Reichert's also joining us. Bruce,
outdoors somewhere in Idaho.
Yeah.
So we're actually supposed to be raising money here for Idaho Public Television during Capital of Light. And Governor, you've had a long history with this building.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, and Bruce, you did a great job on that whole production. And in fact, I remember when we were discussing it, you asked me, you know, what was my history with the building, and I wasn't there when it was built.
Yeah.
Close. But in the 4th grade, I went to St. Joseph's grade school, which was just 3 blocks down the street. And we used to climb around the cathedral, which was, by the way, also one of the Charles Humble, or the Humble Company's buildings.
Yes.
Anyway, we used to climb around that, and then Monsignor Rowe threw us off the building. Not threw us off the building, but I mean, he said, you know, you can't climb around on the building anymore. And so we found the Capitol. And we used to go down and climb around on the 2nd and 3rd floor until they finally put up things to stop us from doing that. But then, you know,
you went inside.
Then I went inside, yeah, as a page when I was going to St. Teresa's Academy in the early 60s. In fact, I was there right after they passed the sales tax for the first time. Then at the College of Idaho, I was a research attaché with Myron Schlechte and the Legislative Council when I was going to the College of Idaho, and then I came back from the military. I became the Assistant Secretary and Parliamentarian of the State Senate, and then I came back finally as an elected official in 1973.
I'm wondering, a lot of folks have been visiting that building now that it's refurbished, and I'm curious what they tell you about it and what you think that building means to the state of Idaho.
Bruce, you know, and no question about it, we spent roughly $125 million on the expansion, and I think it was about $85 million on the renovation, and it needed to be brought up to speed. You know, we couldn't get a gurney. We couldn't get an emergency stretcher on an elevator, and so you had to carry them down the steps, and that was problematic. But anyway, now we've got elevators in there where we're ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. We've got a lot of, we probably lowered our insurance policy a lot because we put in some protective measures for fire and that sort of thing. Not that the place would burn down, but I would tell you they did a tremendous job. One of the things that I think all of us were concerned about 3 years ago when this whole thing got started, and as you recall, the legislature and I had some disagreements on it, was we didn't want to lose one of the great characters of the state capitol, which was a citizen legislature, where the housewife and the insurance salesman and the guy could come off the farm, or the irrigator could drop his shovel and go in and spend 60 or 90 days in the state legislature making public policy. We didn't want to lose that. And I think I talk to the leadership about that every once in a while in both bodies, bicameral as well as bipartisan. And I think both the majority and the minority are doing their best to make sure that that the public access is there, and the public access not only to the building and the facility itself, but to the representatives and the senators within the building.
Yeah. But, you know, Governor, one of the reasons we're here, we're trying to encourage folks to go to the telephone, go online, and voluntarily give a contribution to Idaho Public Television. About 63% of our operating budget comes from voluntary contributions, and programs like you're watching right now are made possible like that.
Pete, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'd like to expand on that 63%.
Oh, I know you do.
I really would.
And so would I.
I really would. In these days of budget crunch, we really need a tremendous outpouring and a bigger expression than folks have ever made about the value that they place. You know, unfortunately, we know in many ways, we know the price of everything and the value of very little. And this is your opportunity to state the value that you place on Idaho Public Television, what it means to you in your life, what it means to you in your community, in your family. And because it is a tough year. Mm-hmm. And I don't see next year, and I think the budgets are already being set, as you well know, for next year, and they're not very promising. And so we need you to place the value on it this year as you've never done before, and we would appreciate it.
So, Governor, I'm curious, should we issue a challenge to the
I knew you was going to bring that up.
lawmakers on the third floor of the Capitol?
You know, I'll tell you what, I'd like to place a challenge to, certainly, I'm going to get a little bit more specific, but, you know, if every Idahoan gave $1, if every Idaho, that would replace everything that comes out of the general fund.
There you go.
So in my family, if I count up my 4 kids and my 5 grandkids, and if I give you $12, but no, but seriously,
You got to do a little better than that, Governor.
all right. No, but what I'm saying is that's really what it is. So obviously, I would challenge all Idahoans to give at least $1. You know, in a family, you count up your family. If everybody gave $1 with 1,538,000 people in Idaho, that's $1,538,000. That's not even new math.
Yeah,
I
like it.
Anyway,
I like it.
But I would say to you, I would say to the legislators, you know, and there were a lot of them, as you might expect, when I said, Pete, you're not going to get that money, and you got 4 years to get off the general fund, and that sort of thing. You know, they all wrote in and told me how wrong I was and what I ought to be doing, and I understood that, but they didn't tell me where to get the money. And so I would challenge them to do 2 things: write a check, at least the size of their family, their grandkids, their great-grandkids, and maybe go 3 or 4 generations back and write for those
And maybe their whole neighborhood, too.
And the second thing is, I would advise them, while you've got this going on, I would invite them to come on and tell their story about why they think Idaho Public Television is so important, with or without an invitation from you.
Because it really is. It's the one thing that connects this very disparate state. You know, you've been all through this state. You know how difficult it is.
Well, Bruce, there's a
north
reason.
and south and east.
There's a reason a foreign flag has never flown over Idaho. You know, I tell my buddy Rick Perry down in Texas, all the 6 flags over Texas. You know, everybody had a piece of Texas at one time, but you couldn't get to Idaho because of the natural barriers. Whether it was the mountains or the rivers or just the wilderness itself, there was never a foreign flag flew over Idaho. And
almost the American flag did with Lewis and Clark. They had a heck of a time.
That's right. It was difficult. But folks, in all seriousness, a great portion of the value that we have in Idaho is expended into the communication channels by Idaho Public Television. And so, you know, I hope that you would give of your means and place the value of those means in how you value Idaho Public Television.
Well, Governor, on behalf of Idaho Public Television and the people of the state, we thank you for your leadership, and we thank you for the time you've given to Idaho Public Television tonight, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Pete.
And we're going to send it over to Ron and another distinguished guest of ours,
Bruce.
Andy
Good job.
Erstead.